Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto befriended Kurama early. After a life-changing event, Naruto meets Kurama early and they become partners and even good friends. With a better outlook on life, he meets many who want to join him and help achieve their dreams and goals together. Among those friends are many beautiful women. Realize just how important he is to them. Before we start, thank you for all of the support. It really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 24. Business or personal? Yes, your ears aren't deceiving you. This isn't another AN but an actual chapter update this time. I want to thank all of you for your patience as I try to sort out my life. Unfortunately, that's still going on, but I'm now managing my time better. I already have ideas for the next chapter, since this is actually the first half of a much larger chapter that I decided to post now. The next chapter will be along soon enough if everything goes right. For now, I'll leave you to enjoy this update. Warning. This story has mature language, sexual themes, and graphic depictions of violence and gore. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto or any of its characters. Chapter 24. Business or personal? Early afternoon somewhere in the training grounds area, it was a sharp gust of air that would have warned anyone nearby that something wasn't quite as quiet as it should have been within the countless lush green trees making up the forest surrounding most of Konoha's training grounds on this sunny day. Really a moot point since no one was around to hear this. Following that gust a moment later were sounds of feet slapping across tree limbs and trunks mixed in with small grunts of exertion and swishing from mist strikes. This dragged on until everything abruptly became deathly silent one moment. This oppressive quietness was broken a few long seconds later when multiple sharp slicing sounds echoed throughout the forest, accompanied by rapid streaks of blue-tinted light cutting through one random tree. In the next instant, the tree blew apart with almost no noise, its cleanly cut pieces flying everywhere. On the largest piece of trunk spinning slowly through the air, one adult male blurred into existence while squatting lazily with his arms resting loosely over his knees like he had no care in the world. He was wearing a normal Konoha Junin outfit complete with the usual green flak vest. Two things set him apart from other similarly dressed Junin: an unusually long ninjutsu in its pitch black sheath attached diagonally across his back, and his dark blue bandana type Hitai-8 covering most of his dark brown shoulder-length hair with a small tuft sticking out between his sickly-looking eyes. Gecko Hayate looked like he couldn't be bothered to change his expression from its usual laid-back one, even as his black pupils sharpened and locked with one cerulean blue eye. Its eye-patched owner just emerged from the ruined tree's debris cloud, leaping high into the air toward the man with his arms raised overhead. In his hands was a pair of gunmetal-colored sabers with their blue-tinted edges gleaming dangerously in the sunlight. Uzumaki Naruto, dressed in his new outfit, was grinning like a maniac even as he swung the deadly weapons down in an arc, aiming for his opponent's shoulders. In response, Hayate lazily leaned back out of the saber's reach as they cut through the air, causing the piece of trunk he was attached to via chakra to tilt with his body roll as well. This gave him an opening to shove off with his legs, so his temporary perch was sent flying like a projectile at his opponent. Recovering from his miss, Naruto's right eye narrowed in concentration for an instant before his body flickered and instantly switched places with the approaching wooden missile, showing that he just performed a flawless kawarimi without seals. The piece of trunk flew away safely out of sight behind him as they sailed through the air. At this point, they had to hop across a large tree limb to continue their mid-air scuffle, and Naruto shoved off with more strength in his legs, allowing him to get closer with a vicious grin as he prepared to attack again. This time, the blonde made to stab straight at his opponent's chest like a lance with his right saber while preparing to swing with the left, multiple angles of attack that would be difficult to fend off. Hayate had to allow some admiration for this new genin's already impressive skills as his right hand reached for his ninjato's hilt peeking over his right shoulder. Upon gripping it, there was a barely audible slicing sound, then a click. Even though it looked like the man never drew his blade, Naruto was abruptly blown back with a large cut across his chest, and his stunned expression is proofs that the top Kenjutsu user in Konoha actually did anything. He wasn't too surprised when the blonde popped into smoke at that moment. It was a shadow clone. Yugao often told him, more like complained, of his opponent's fondness for using the technique. He didn't have time to ponder on the original's location when 6 Narutos instantly appeared in midair surrounding him, each one of them rearing his right hand back with a whirling blue sphere of chakra in it. Almost on instinct, Hayate's blade came out once again and there was actually a visible flash of silver in a circle around him before it was back in its sheath. He jokingly chided himself inwardly on being that slow with his drawing speed while all 6 slashed Narutos were propelled back before poofing out with their Rasengans dispelling violently. This time, the original himself promptly appeared above Hayate with one saber already descending. Finally, the Kenjutsu master had to draw his ninjutsu out for real to block the incoming blade overhead with a sharp clang. The powerful strike forced Hayate down out of the air to land on the ground while Naruto used nearby trunks as springboards several times to follow him down. Another loud clash rang out through the forest when the blonde immediately launched himself from the last foothold and forced Hayate back several feet with their blades between their chests, before the older man regained control easily enough with his strength. When their eyes locked even as their swords trembled in stalemate, Hayate finally broke his lazy expression to allow an impressed eyebrow. Naruto shot him a feral grin in response. Meanwhile in the Hokage's office inside a crystal ball sitting on a large desk, a misty projection was showing the same 2 combatants who just broke apart with a screech of metal and sparks before disappearing in blurs of speed. The high-speed battle continued with sounds of clashing metals and more sparks among the tree limbs. Only 3 people were watching all this. Mitarashi Anko was leaning in with her hands on the Hokage's desk, peering into the crystal ball to watch her brand new subordinates battle with her eyebrows furrowed in slight confusion. A purple-haired Anbu who just came off duty was standing next to her cross-armed, her slatted chocolate-brown eyes firmly locked on the ball as well. While Azuki Yugao's face was a blank mask, her long and delicate-looking fingers were twitching against her forearms impatiently and anyone could feel waves of annoyance coming from her. Across the desk from the 2 beautiful women, the 3rd Hokage himself was seated in his chair, channeling chakra into the crystal ball with the Tomegan telescope jutsu. Anko-chan, did you even administer a genin test in any way? He spoke conversationally as he continued to watch the battle. Anko's light brown eyes flickered to him for an instant before returning to the crystal ball with an impish smirk. Of course I did. And, exactly what did you do? I had him treat me to dango for lunch before coming here. That poor Gamma-chan. Yugao groaned unhappily as she shook her head, referring to the adorable toad-themed wallet Naruto carried around. Ignoring her older sister and the Hokage's deadpan stare, Anko's grin widened as she made a "so" gesture with her left hand. It was a close thing. He almost didn't have enough money, but he managed to reach my goal in the end and passed. What goal was that? That he's to keep enough cash on him at all time whenever you extort him into feeding your addiction, Anko-chan. Yugao retorted, her irritation rising. It wasn't primarily because of Anko's silly antics, though. In other words, you've already accepted him. The 3rd cut in before the sisters could get into a bickering match. The women scoffed haughtily at the same time and leaned on their left legs with their right hands resting on their breathtakingly curvy hips in the same relaxed manner. It was almost terrifying, even to this aged leader, how easy it was to see them as real sisters even though they didn't know each other until 8 years ago and didn't share one single drop of family blood between them. Despite Anko's more mischievous and outgoing nature compared to Yugao, Hiruzen was amazed the young women themselves never seemed to realize just how similar they were in many other ways. Should I even bother with a test, even as a formality? I basically tested him already when he asked to go into the forest of death, and he's passed with flying colors. Rookie's already chunin material in my opinion, so we might as well do a field promotion first chance. Anko answered while Yugao nodded in agreement, breaking the Hokage out of his thoughts. He took an instant to clear his mind and nodded sagely as his eyes returned to the crystal ball. Hayate and Naruto were still blurs as they exchanged blows while weaving through trees like high-speed snakes. I find myself inclined to agree with your assessment, but he still lacks enough experience on the field. Plus, I'd like for him to participate in the exams here in Konoha. The women's eyes snapped to him sharply and Hiruzen had to chuckle inwardly, even their protectiveness toward Naruto was the same level of intensity. You're planning on parading him around like a top-breed stallion for the clients. Not exactly low profile, I'd say. Yugao was the one to voice their unhappy thought and he smirked shrewdly. A very acute observation. We'll discuss this further when our two wayward shinobi return from working out some unresolved business. He dismissed the topic for the moment, even though the women looked like they wanted to press this. The snake mistress then finally remembered why she was confused a moment ago. Yeah, about that. Why'd my brand spankin' new subordinate attack Hayate as soon as we stepped into this room and saw him? She frowned accusingly as she waved a hand at the conveniently open window the two men left out a few minutes ago to continue their fight. Moreover, why didn't your guards step in? That means you forewarned them to not do anything since I can't imagine they would have stayed still when the blades came out in close proximity to you. It's like you knew they'd react like that, old man. Yugao went back to emitting more intense waves of annoyance as her surrogate sister brought these points up. When she came by the office to drop off a scroll from the Anbu HQ on her way home, she found Hayate apparently waiting with the Hokage for someone. He paled considerably upon seeing her, which was impressive considering his somewhat sickly appearance. Before she could quiz him on his presence to sat her curiosity, a blonde blur, which she instinctively knew to be Naruto by color alone, blew by her from behind and there was a loud clash of metal. In an instant, the two men she was most fond of were crossing swords with gritted teeth and they disappeared outside in the next second. She glanced around the office frantically to see her amused leader calmly bringing out the crystal ball from behind the desk and her younger sister standing at the office's door, looking exactly as confused as she was feeling. That was when the clues for an unsolved mystery all clicked into place for her. You already left for a mission that morning after Naruto-kun's test, so you didn't see that Hayate-kun came back home later in the same day. He was even grumbling about some pain in his side, likely from being kicked there the night before. I should have realized the coincidence, then. She growled with a scowl, now openly showing her irritation at finding out that her boyfriend attacked her best male friend and escalated the fight to such a level it changed a portion of Konoha's landscape. Even if it was a test on his superior's orders, she was going to let Hayate have it the first chance she got. Enko's lips formed a perfect O when she realized the identity of the attacker herself. She then snapped her mouth shut and glanced at the Hokage, who nodded his confirmation. She narrowed her eyes. It was necessary in order to determine his readiness for this arrangement between you and him. You know how dangerous it will be for him without teammates, and he needs to be able to both defend himself and watch your back against strong enemies on missions. The third explained calmly. Enko stared for a long moment before finally sighing. It's not like he was seriously hurt, I guess. You'd better watch out when Kana-san finds out, though. She smirked when Hiruzen gulped audibly at the mention of the Yamanaka matriarch. That woman loved Naruto like a son and would leave even the powerful village leader with only a piece of his mind after she was done for purposely setting this test on the blonde. That'd be possible thanks to her terrifying reputation of using her clan's mind jutsu to their most sadistic potential back when she was in the military. Whenever she said she'd give anyone a piece of their mind, she literally meant it. How one of Konoha's scariest chunin easily transitioned to a gentle mother and flower shop manager upon retirement was a mystery not even the entire intelligence department could crack. Oblivious to the suddenly frightened old man's thoughts, Enko continued. I can't really complain since this means I get the rookie without having to wipe two other brats' asses for them. I wonder why that'd make you happy. Yugao interjected with a teasing grin as she watched the ongoing skirmish in the crystal ball. That caught Enko off guard a little, as evidenced by a small dusting of pink on her cheeks, but she didn't back down. The Anbu felt a shiver go down her spine when her younger sister slipped in by her side and wrapped an arm around her shoulders to lean in near her ear, as if to reveal an enticing secret. I bet this is making you horny, Yugao-ne. Watching your two favorite men go at it, maybe you're imagining that they're actually fighting over you this very moment. Enko whispered with that damned smirk. Yugao's entire body stiffened at the implications before she began to sputter indignantly with a growing blush while Enko's grin became evil as she swooped in for the kill. Hiruzen shook his head wearily at the teasing in front of him. He also couldn't help but be a little envious of the Jinchuriki for being able to attract the interest of Konoha's three most powerful and beautiful active kunoichi. In addition to the two purple-haired women standing in this office, a certain Anbu commander was asking for details on Naruto more often lately. Dragon called it professional curiosity when this was pointed out, but he wasn't fooled. He knew her ever since she abandoned her old identity, and she rarely paid this much attention to any other man aside from information gathering for mission targets. The only difference was that he knew for certain Naruto wasn't going to end up dead by her hands anytime soon like those unfortunate men, however. To be young again. He mused inwardly before frenzied battle noises from the crystal ball's projection caught everyone's attention and they all leaned in to get a better look. Back to the match. Holy shit, Yugao-chan's right. Those stabs of his are scary. That was Gekko Hayate's calm thought while seemingly having no trouble dodging each one of Naruto's rabid stabs as the two of them sailed through the air. The blonde's right arm was a blur as he tried to get a bead on any part of his opponent's body at the fastest speed possible, but the Junin was slipping by everything with little effort, much to the young man's irritation. They finally landed on the ground and, not wanting to end his ferocious assault yet, Naruto was quick to use his left saber for a powerful swing that Hayate had to block fully with both his hands bracing his ninjutsu. This sent him sliding back from the force for some distance and Naruto followed closely, his right arm turning into a blur again as he tried to stab mostly at his still off-balance opponent's head now. Like before, Hayate had no issue dodging, with his head smoothly giving each deadly strike a slip. He even looked a little bored, despite facing Naruto's relentless assault. He finally slid to a stop and was about to retaliate with a massive swing of his ninjutsu to at least push the blonde off when his opponent's tempo changed. The stabs stopped instantly and Hayate allowed himself to be a little baffled at this, at least until his sharp eyes picked up flashes of the two sabers coming at his midsection from both sides like a scissor. It took all he had to crouch all the way down to the ground just to escape the blades crossing just above his head. He'd need to check himself for an impromptu haircut later. He then heard multiple slicing sounds overhead before jumping back to put space between himself and his opponent, wondering why Naruto wasn't hounding him so closely with more of his relentless attacks this time. Instead, he was finally allowed some space for the first time in 10 minutes. The Junin figured this change in tactics had something to do with the slicing sounds he heard earlier, and he was right. Naruto was behind a seemingly innocent pair of regular-sized trees sitting close together between him and Hayate when a thin branch fell down to the ground from one of them, catching the Junin's attention. Upon closer inspection, the trees looked intact but they were actually cut multiple times as evidenced by their small branches now shedding off the trunks, which were beginning to slowly tilt forward onto the ground in large pieces. Naruto's mischievous grin was enough to have anyone's mental alarms blaring, like Hayate's right now, when he quickly sheathed his sabers to free up his hands. The swordsman frowned as his opponent's hands blurred through seals just as the first of the tree's large pieces was about to hit the ground. Futon. Repusho Gale Palm. Naruto clapped his hands together forcefully, sending out a powerful gust of wind in front of him. As a result, this technique then blew most of the still airborne pieces of wood at high speed in the direction of a slightly impressed Hayate. Most of them would miss or smash into obstacles randomly along the way, but 5 of these wooden projectiles were going to hit him all over, quite possibly leaving him with broken bones afterward. The Junin simply responded by instantly sinking into the ground as if it was water with his Dochu Aigyo underground projection fish jutsu. This allowed the trunk pieces to fly harmlessly through where he was just an instant ago. A surprised Naruto nearly missed his opponent shooting out of the earth to his right and brought both of his sabers out in time to block a vicious swing, and they then descended into a flurry of near misses and parries. I suppose I shouldn't bother asking why you attacked me out of the blue, unless I'm just helping you trim the tree population of this forest. Hayate quipped dryly as he parried a stab before trying to slice Naruto's chest to return the favor. The blonde slipped past before attempting to do a cross slash with his sabers that Hayate easily blocked at the crossing point with his blade. However, the strength of this strike forced him into sliding backward roughly across the forest's ground for several meters before stopping. At this point, Naruto stayed his ground and let up long enough to nod his head decisively with a grin. Funny man, but there's no doubt you're the one who attacked me last month. He stated firmly as he shifted his body to show only his left side profile in a loose fencing stance with his left saber held out in front and his right saber sheathed at his hip but reverse gripped tightly, ready to be used at any moment. A purely defensive and reactionary kata. The reason for this shift was due to Hayate sheathing his blade and then removing the ninjutsu from his back to hold it in his left hand, as if preparing to draw it even faster than he did before. It felt to the young man like his opponent was preparing to bring this up another notch. I'm curious as to how you knew it was me immediately. Hayate spoke casually as he twisted his upper body left and right to stretch a little, taking advantage of the lull between the two opponents. Naruto shifted a little nervously. You seem like an okay fella, but I'll have to keep that a secret until I'm sure you're trusted by Hokage Gigi. Can't risk saying anything as long there's a possibility this info could be used against me. Hayate nodded slowly with half-lidded eyes. I admire your vigilance at least. That doesn't explain why you attacked me in the Hokage's office, though. He commented and Naruto shrugged vaguely. It's any Konoha shinobi's duty to protect the Hokage. And since I'm a little suspicious of you and had to get you away from him for his safety, he trailed off before grinning foxily. Either that, or I just wanted to continue our fight from earlier and didn't want to waste time. He finished, his tone letting Hayate know that he fully intended the latter. The sickly-looking swordsman allowed a small smile as he shifted into an aggressive kata with his torso leaning forward and low to the ground. His sharp eyes remained fixed on Naruto's visible one as his right hand gripped the hilt of his ninjutsu, which was being held parallel just off the ground by his left hand. This made Naruto even more wary as he stiffened his defense, his left saber prepared to parry any incoming strike. After a terse moment between the two sword users, Naruto was startled to see Hayate disappearing from his vision. His Sharingan didn't even pick up anything. In the next instant, he instinctively glanced down to see Hayate had dashed in close, his body still low to the ground and his blade already coming out in a quick draw. It took all Naruto had to move his left saber down just to deflect the powerful strike away from his torso and he was still blown back into the air from the force. Even then, he knew he was lucky on that one as he flipped and righted his body midair. His feet finding purchase on the ground and sliding to a stop, he recovered in time to see Hayate closing in again and his blade was coming down on him from above this time. Compared to Naruto's aggressive and relentless style, his opponent's swordsmanship was precise, decisive, and incredibly strong. Reacting on instincts again, Naruto dashed closer to the Junin's body with his right hand already drawing the other saber out of its sheath to counter. Hayate, realizing his opponent was now too close for his strike to be effective, easily performed a kawarimi with a nearby dried piece of wood to get out of the way of Naruto's retaliation. Before the blonde even finished his missed strike, he was nearly blindsided when Hayate appeared at his exposed right side with his ninjutsu already in motion. The Jinchuriki did his own kawarimi with a log to escape, but he still didn't get a break when he was instantly attacked from his left the moment he reappeared. He growled in irritation as he blocked that ninjutsu with both sabers, resulting in a concussive wave just from the force alone. As the nearby trees shook slightly from the impact, Naruto had to go into retreat with Hayate easily putting him on full defense using decisive strikes to keep him off balance. He couldn't even think of countering at all, relying fully on his instincts and the Sharingan to at least block or dodge each swipe of the ninjutsu by a hair's width. And he could tell Hayate was still holding back to avoid accidentally injuring him fatally. This was just a spar, after all. After 5 long minutes of near misses and blocking, a frustrated Naruto was finally cornered when he was forced back against a large boulder. Hayate ended up standing in front of him, not even looking a little winded with his ninjutsu poised to strike if his opponent moved a single inch. Fuck. Naruto cursed as he glared at the bandana-wearing man, not willing to concede defeat just yet. Hayate's lips twitched into a small smirk. You're rather too powerful to be a simple genin and there's no denying that you'll likely be my superior in swordsmanship in the future. However, the position of Konoha's top swordsman will remain with me for the time being, and I have no intention of giving it up so easily. Naruto narrowed his eyes in defiance as he quickly sheathed both sabers to free up his hands. Who said this is over? Hayate's dark eyes widened a fraction before snapping up to see a copy of Naruto descending upon him from above with a Rasengan whirling in its right hand. He cursed before disappearing in a blur the next instant, and an explosion rocked the forest when the clone struck the ground. Naruto didn't even register this as he was already on to the next move. Kaden. Gokaku Great Fireball. A giant white-hot fireball was now bearing down upon Hayate when he reappeared. Not even phased, he was already running through hand seals of his own. Suiten, Hahanryu tearing torrent. A powerful torrent of water began spiraling in the palm of his right hand as he pushed it out toward the approaching fire jutsu. The torrent shot out with such force that it punched into the center of the fireball, dissolving the two clashing jutsu into a large cloud of steam that enveloped the two combatants. Hayate backed out of the cloud right away, trying to sense Naruto within it. He was glad he moved when he did, though. Futon. Rinkuden drilling air bullet. A large whirling ball of dense air drilled its way through the steam, leaving a perfect hole behind as it homed in toward Hayate. In response, he was calmly going through more seals before ending in a ram hand sign. Doten. Doryuden Earth Dragon Bullet. A huge dragon's head made of earth instantly popped out of the ground in front of him with its large maw opening to shoot out several small bullets of earth toward the air bullet. They were all plowed through by the powerful wind jutsu, but they did their job in dulling its effectiveness. The dragon's head then opened its maw even wider before chomping down on the weakened air bullet the instant they clashed, dissipating it easily. As the earth jutsu dissolved into the ground with its job done, Hayate was amused to see a stunned expression on Naruto's face as he just stood there in disbelief. Holy shit, that was great. I need to learn that, he finally exclaimed, making the Junin grin slightly, but neither of them let their guards down just yet. Damn, sometimes I wish I wasn't such a noble do-gooder with making sure to close my Sharingan whenever I'm seeing him about to use any technique. Too bad we didn't fight longer last month when I thought he was an enemy, maybe I'll ask his permission later. Naruto thought grouchily before getting back to the fight at hand. He made a discreet gesture. 12 copies of the blonde immediately surrounded Hayate at that moment, all of them rearing back to attack. The Junin, seeing this coming, let out a brief exhale before his eyes sharpened even as the nearest clone's fist was now just inches away. Dance of the Crescent Moon. The clones directly in front of Hayate were knocked back and dispelled while the remaining ones found themselves swinging at nothing but empty air. Meanwhile, 3 copies of Hayate were now zipping through the air, homing in on the surprised blonde, all 3 of their blades preparing to cut into him. Naruto gritted his teeth and quickly drew his 2 swords to sweep them out in wide arcs in an attempt to fend off the incoming attack. Unfortunately for him, Hayate's strength was too much when their blades clashed and he was knocked back hard even though he managed to deflect all 3 incoming blades from slicing into him. His back crashed into a tree trunk with his head banging against the hard surface. Stars bursting in his eyes, he fell to his knees unable to move his suddenly uncooperative limbs. While he shook his head and blinked through the blurriness in his vision, he heard light popping from his opponent disposing of the remaining clones with no trouble. A moment later, a cool piece of metal lightly touched his neck and it took him a second to see it was the blunt edge of a ninjutsu. It was held in the right hand of Hayate, now standing before him with a relaxed expression on his face. I suppose it's now safe to say it's over. We do have people waiting for us back at the tower, he stated calmly as he moved his blade away. Naruto growled disgruntledly and nodded in surrender before sheathing and sealing his sabers. He then took a moment to recover from the brief skirmish. I didn't catch your name. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, by the way. He had a good guess, but just wanted to make sure. Gecko Hayate, and it's nice to finally meet you. You've been coming up in conversations often these days. The man introduced himself as he sheathed his blade before reattaching it to his back, a little amused that Naruto attacked him without checking who he was. The blonde laughed. No wonder I had a feeling I was screwed when you shifted to holding your sword in your hand. While your styles are a bit different, that was also Yugao-chan's tell whenever she was taking her skills to the next level, right before she kicked my ass in earnest too. Hayate smirked lazily and reached down to help the younger man to his feet. You're apparently pretty close if she lets you use the affectionate suffix so easily. She doesn't allow just anyone that honor. Naruto started at that and showed a sheepish expression. Ah, will that be a problem? Hayate waved it off and they began making their way back to the village. Don't worry, she would have made it known rather violently if she disliked it. I'm just happy she has at least one more close friend instead of yet another acquaintance or sparring partner. This got Naruto to look at him quizzically, wondering why an amazing woman like Yugao would have difficulty making friends. The older man saw this expression and shrugged vaguely. I'd say more, but I'm afraid she's already about to kick my ass as it is for attacking you that night and then not telling her afterward. I don't need to incriminate myself further. If she thinks I'm embarrassing her with giving away personal details, only she should tell you herself. Naruto put on a confused expression as they hopped through the trees. How would she find out? It's just you and me out here. I'm sure they're viewing us at this moment. Oh right, the pervert ball. This almost made Hayate miss a tree limb as he went through a brief laughing coughing fit. Back at the office meanwhile, an old man was blushing slightly with two purple-haired women shooting him raised eyebrows and amused grins, and it took an awkward minute until Naruto and Hayate arrived at the open window. The men quickly hopped into the office to take their places next to the women, with Hayate nervously putting Naruto between himself and his irritated girlfriend. The third cleared his throat. For the record, Naruto-kun, the crystal ball, he stressed, ignoring the snickering from Naruto and Anko, does not allow viewing inside private properties and bathhouses. The blonde cocked his head as the others chuckled. I thought it was the first who designed this. He pointed out, obviously confused that a healthy and red-blooded male like Senju Hashirama would deliberately lock out such prime peeping. With his wife, helping out, while looking over his shoulder, I'm sure. Hiruzen replied with a knowing smirk. Naruto understood and briefly bowed his head, along with the other two men, in sympathy for their long-deceased, and oppressed, fellow male. The purple sisters merely rolled their eyes at their silliness. The blonde then grinned foxily when an idea came to mind. Anything about outdoor swimming. Hiruzen froze at this, shocked he never thought of that. Prime swimming holes are all over the village, and I'm sure the first and Mito Bachan didn't account for them. It's not like they predicted women deciding to go out in public wearing skimpy swimsuits and play around, especially 100 years ago when it wasn't as common. Anko and Yugao simultaneously punched Naruto hard on the shoulders. Ow. The hell was that for? Don't give him ideas. We do go to these swimming holes and we don't need perverts we can't sense watching from here. Anko growled. The notion that these two beautiful women went swimming immediately sent Naruto and Hayate into delightful daydreams about just what kind of swimsuits Anko and Yugao would wear. This time, the irritated purple-haired women elbowed their men in their stomachs hard enough to get pained grunts upon seeing their slightly glazed-over expressions. A thud was heard and everyone snapped out of it to see their leader had thumped his forehead on the desk, mumbling something. Over 40 years as Hokage, never once thought about swimming holes, the professor, my ass. This elicited unsympathetic snorts from the women while the younger men grinned amusedly. Why focus on seeing naked women in baths when swimsuits are just as good? Ero Sennin would be disappointed in you, Hokage Gigi. Naruto admonished jokingly, which sent the room into chuckles and Hiruzen mock growled. Don't put me in the same boat as that super pervert. It took a moment for the humor to settle down and the Hokage cleared his throat. Naruto-kun, I requested for Gecko Hayate to be here to meet you and safely reveal him as the attacker last month. This is to cut off any possible misunderstanding should you have randomly met him somewhere without prior knowledge. Plus, with your common interest in Kenjutsu, it's my hope that the two of you might find the time to train together and help better each other in the future. Naruto and Hayate turned each other and immediately went into an intense staring contest that seemed to stretch on for eternity, making the women fidget a little. They then nearly facepalted when the two men suddenly clasped each other's right hand loudly in a manly handshake. Sorry for sending you packing last month. Naruto grunted with a wicked grin, not sounding apologetic at all. Hayate smirked coolly. Sorry for kicking your ass today. Only because I held back my strongest jutsu out of concern for my fellow comrade and Konoha's landscape this time. That's if I actually let you get time to use them like before. As they watched the men squeeze each other's hand tightly with challenging expressions, Anko leaned toward Yugao. It's pretty rare to see Hayate be a little competitive. It's kinda hot. Yugao, feeling a little warm under the collar, almost automatically nodded before what Anko said caught on. She glanced with a raised eyebrow at the other woman, who grinned. What did you expect? He's handsome and I did have a small crush on him for a short while. I'm surprised. You've never shown any sign. He's one of the few men our age who's been nothing less than a perfect gentleman to the snake whore, despite me being a complete bitch to him in the beginning when I thought he was stealing you from me. Anko whispered with a fond smile, making sure no one but her sister heard this. Yugao had to hide her wince. She definitely remembered the first couple years watching over a teenaged and hormonal Anko. There were countless times she wanted to contemplate homicide because of just how utterly bratty her surrogate sister was in monopolizing her attention. Especially in interrupting many of her, alone, times with a certain ex-kenjutsu instructor. She never understood how Hayate had the patience of an enlightened monk with Anko, and loved him even more for it. So how'd you find me out? Hayate's voice broke them out of their girl talk and they saw their men's pissing contest was over for now. Naruto glanced over at the Hokage to see if it was okay. He got a nod, and then thumbed at his eye patch. I have the Sharingan behind this. Did you know that? If Hayate was surprised, he didn't show it. Instead, he nodded for the blonde to continue. Let's start with the simple part first. The color of your chakra, which is blue with some brown, matches that of the attackers. Aren't there others? I'm sure I'm not the only one with that color since my elements are pretty common. Hayate pointed out calmly, not really trying to disprove this theory, but this was still circumstantial so far. Naruto nodded his agreement and raised a finger to point up at the top of the taller man's head. Height: 184 centimeters. Huh, was everyone's response while Naruto continued rattling out numbers as his finger pointed at the corresponding spots on its way down the Junin's body. Chest: 95 centimeters. Waist: 80 centimeters. Inseam: 78 centimeters. Need I go on? Hayate kept the deadpan expression on his face as he made to twist and cover his body away from an amused blonde like an embarrassed maiden. I think I feel violated. He muttered flatly, getting guffaws from Naruto and Anko. These were your measurements. I don't even know any of them other than your height. Yugao blurted out, and her boyfriend nodded. They're all correct, in case you're wondering. It helped a lot that you wore a tight stealth suit last month and that made it easy to figure out the measurements with a quick glance. Naruto explained as he thumbed at his eye patch again. This Sharingan's pretty useful for that. Most important of all, though, he pointed at the ninjutsu strapped to Hayate's back. Your ninjutsu is exactly 64.5 centimeters long. That would have been a typical length if it was a curved katana, but that straight-edged ninjutsu, which is around 10 centimeters longer than the average length, stood out instantly to me. Using this information, the attacker and his weapon from that night matched your measurements exactly. It's like comparing someone's fingerprints from a crime scene to the ones on record. He finished with a teasing tone on the last sentence. I protest the insinuation that I'm a criminal. Hayate retorted dully as he crossed his arms. This was the perfect setup for Anko as she sauntered over to her fellow Junin and casually leaned a forearm on his shoulder with a smirk. I dunno, assaulting a minor alone in a dark forest in the middle of the night. You know I'm technically part of the police force, and maybe I should take you in for questioning just in case. This got Yugao to giggle at her boyfriend's discomfort and the others were watching in amusement. A minor, who held his own against a Junin and used high-level jutsu like they're E-ranked, he quizzed with a raised eyebrow, as if not believing Anko was even going down this path of conversation. Still, he was one at that time, since it's before he graduated. A criminal also usually makes excuses when caught. She shot back, her grin widening at Hayate's twitching eye. Oi, there's nothing minor about my pure awesomeness, Anko-sensei. Naruto cut in with mock indignation, getting everyone to roll their eyes at him. Say that again after if you manage to beat me in a spar even once, rookie. Anko waved him off dismissively. Before Naruto was about to retort with a sarcastic remark, a voice cut in. While I'm enjoying the banter, I'm afraid we must move on to other matters now that I've introduced our esteemed Kenjutsu master. Anko-chan and Naruto-kun, please remain here. The Hokage requested. Hayate nodded and shook hands with Naruto again, this time in a friendly manner. Like Hokage-sama hoped, I'd like to spar with you once in a while. I'll be around the village for the foreseeable future, so just talk to Yugao-chan whenever you want to look me up. Definitely looking forward to that. Naruto replied with an assured grin. With that, Yugao said her goodbye as well and the couple left. Before the door closed completely, Anko and Naruto snickered when they glimpsed Yugao turning on her sweating boyfriend with a glare that all men universally knew from birth, explain yourself, or it's the couch. Now then, I would like to apologize for testing you rather harshly last month, Naruto-kun. I needed to make sure you were ready to support your Junin-sensei without two other teammates and the best way to do that is in an ambush situation when you had little information and weapons. It's not just your life I'm risking whenever I send you out on dangerous missions, but your sensei's as well. Hiruzen got to the point right away. Naruto shrugged and waved it off. I know it's not just myself I need to look after. Enko-sensei is more important than even that, and I'd be disappointed with myself if I'm not up to the task. You did what you had to do, Hokage Jiji. Enko beamed at him a little from his side and the third nodded. Let's discuss your foreseeable future now. He stated calmly and steepled his hands on the desk, looking less like a grandfatherly figure and more like the leader of a military village. You are clearly stronger and much more skilled than the average genin, and I'm sure you know that already. He stated bluntly. Naruto couldn't resist doing his sheepish pose. I kinda gathered that but didn't want to presume too much. You pick now to be a little humble. Enko snorted in amusement. Some of my top shinobi are wondering why I'm even bothering with starting you out as a genin. The third discreetly glanced over at the purple-haired Junin, who shifted a little, before returning to the young man. There were precedents in the past where exceptional people become Chunin or Junin long before your current age. Uchiha Itachi was the most recent. Naruto sweet-dropped. You had to pick the one who went batshit insane as an example. Couldn't it have been Kakashi-sensei at least? Hiruzen smiled gently and the blonde thought he saw a small flash of grief in his eyes for an instant. He was an extraordinary shinobi who clearly loved this village, and I was all but ready to select him as my second successor when he became old enough. I dare say he would have been sitting here in this chair before you right now if not for the massacre, and I'm still regretful to this day that I didn't anticipate his fall from grace until it was too late. Oi, there's more to this than he's letting on. He's not exactly lying, but he's feeling remorse for not being able to prevent this, as opposed to having it happen out of the blue. It's like he knew beforehand. Kurama suddenly spoke up before letting out a cute yawn, having woken up from her recent nap. Oh, you're awake. I'm kind of getting that sense too, but it's not like I can just interrogate my superior about this. Some secrets might be better off staying buried until the right time, I suppose. He felt Kurama shrug in his mind, knowing she didn't care as long as it resulted in fewer Uchihas in this world. Moving along, as the Hokage, I try to connect with my shinobi on a personal level as much as I can, and I consider this entire village as my family that I must protect. However, there are times I need to look at the big picture and take actions that might be considered distasteful to a few relatives, but would benefit the family as whole. The third continued, becoming serious. Naruto remained silent, his expression not changing. Enko frowned a little, not liking where this was going for her friend, even though she understood where her superior was coming from. I consider you to be truly like my second grandson, and that is why, instead of trying to sugarcoat this with pretty words of village pride, I'm telling you up front that I'll be using you to increase this family's prosperity. Enko was almost going to retort in defense of her love, superiors be damned, when Naruto stopped her by chuckling. If you were expecting me to be upset by that, Hokage Jiji, then you're going to be disappointed. There's a line between business and personal, and I've learned that quickly with the fox long before any of this. I'm proud to call Kurama my closest friend, but she always tries her best to maim and almost kill me during our training sessions because she wants me to be stronger. If I took issue with this kind of thing all the time, I'm never going to get anywhere in this world. Within the seal, Kurama had to blush prettily upon feeling his complete sincerity when he called her his closest friend, and was thankful he couldn't see her elated expression now. He wouldn't have let her live it down. Even now, as she was beginning to trust him implicitly, her host still surprised her some days. Naruto allowed a relaxed smile. So, what are you going to have us do, Hokage-sama? He addressed the leader formally, showing he was able to make this purely business. Hiruzen nodded with a grin, inwardly relieved the blonde was taking this well enough. Enko sighed quietly. If her secret love wasn't going to take this personally, then she wouldn't either for his sake. If it wasn't for a certain event coming up, I would have just pushed for your promotion on the field soon enough. However, I want you in that event to attract attention from potential clients, and only you can get in as a genin. The Chunin exams. Quite insightful, Naruto-kun. I wish to remind the nations that Konohagakure still produces quality shinobi and kunoichi, and you will be headlining the most talented group of Konoha genin in many years. So it's not just me, huh? Hinata-chan, Ino-chan, and the others might be involved too. Naruto's tone was neutral, not sure what to think of this. Of course, the other genin will not participate in the exams if their sensei do not feel they're prepared, and I promise I will not be pushing them on that. However, I have a hunch that, because you helped train with most of them for years, they would likely be up to the task. The blonde had to nod with a proud smile for his friends. So how are we gonna get into Kumo for the next exams in a few months? I'm sure our relations are still a bit strained. He quizzed, his tone showing he wasn't particularly thrilled with the idea of dealing with Kumogakure in any capacity, since their shinobi almost kidnapped his girlfriend and his cute little firecracker. Hiruzen shook his head and smirked knowingly. I'm afraid I misspoke. The exams I am speaking of will be taking place here in Konohagakure. Even I am not ambitious enough to send a group consisting mostly of clan heirs and heiresses into hostile territory. The Hyuga clan would revolt at the mere notion of me putting Lady Hinata and Neji-san anywhere near the Land of Lightning. Naruto grinned sheepishly while Anko snickered quietly at his little gaffe. Well, now I feel mighty stupid. Of course that shouldn't happen. So, when are the exams here if we're following the rotation among the villages? They will take place a little over a year from now, which is good because I will need time in getting you eligible. It's because he's going in by himself, isn't it? Anko interjected with a frown, not happy with that idea. The Hokage nodded his confirmation and Naruto raised a curious eyebrow. I know teams are generally used for the exams, so I wasn't aware just anyone could enroll alone. And you'd be right. Not just anyone could get in without two other teammates. I'm hearing a but here. There's a reason why I brought up Uchiha Itachi earlier. He was the last Konoha genin to have participated in the exams by himself. So there's a different set of rules for solo examinees. Yes, and they're generally designed to discourage people like Itachi and you from enrolling. Naruto's easy grin stilled while his Junin sensei muttered, oh no, with a roll of her eyes, knowing exactly what his reaction would be. Oh really? He rumbled dangerously as he crossed his arms with his right eye briefly flashing a crimson slit, and his grin turning fanged and feral. He was definitely ready to prove to the organizers that their silly little rules were nowhere near enough to keep him down. Anko realized that animalistic expression, combined with his new outfit, was beginning to turn her on, and she had to glance away biting her lower lip. Hiruzen chuckled and put a hand up to forestall the blonde's predictable declaration of his awesomeness. Now, I can sense you're raring to take this on. However, you'll have to be prepared to work hard for this. The rules are such that to prove your capability for taking the exams alone, you must complete a set amount of missions. While regular genin will be able to take the exams with personal nominations from their Junin sensei after taking at least 20 D ranks missions, you must take 3 times that amount and also successfully complete at least 10 missions of C rank or higher. Naruto groaned and slumped over while Anko facepalmed. S660 D ranks, he mumbled lifelessly, not wanting to believe that insane number. You're telling me I have to go along and watch over you on these missions? I thought I'm finally done with those glorified house chores for good, but this just keeps pulling me back in. Anko muttered angrily as she glared accusingly at Naruto as the one responsible for this development. Hiruzen smirked, almost enjoying his subordinate's suffering, before expelling a small sigh. He was not looking forward to the next part of this conversation. Furthermore, I will have to send letters to all nations of my intent to nominate you for solo enrollment if the International Exams Committee is to allow your entry. Naruto and Anko snapped to him with wide eyes. What? The Junin cried, startling her friend a little with the outburst. It's the only way he'll be able to get in without teammates. It sounds like those damn rules are meant to punish, not discourage them. That's precisely the purpose. This is an important event promoting international cooperation, and this goes against the general rules. They most certainly do not like that. Nevertheless, they understood there would be unique circumstances for some examinees, so they allowed some very strict stipulations. They also knew this could be abused, and, as a result, made this extremely high risk for everyone involved by increasing awareness about these unique individuals. Whoever passes with these harsh conditions will garner great praises and draw in more clients for their village. On the other hand, if they fail, the village is seen as foolish and arrogant for even daring to go this route, and they lose a large amount of credibility. Then why don't we use this more often? If the returns are so great, most cages prefer to take the safe route. Even if they had genin that could take this on, they'd instead assign them teammates to go through the exam safely without drawing attention, because the risk of being an international laughingstock upon failure were too great for it to be worth it in most cases. I will not lie here, the real reason almost no one took this option is that it is dangerous for any solo examinee since it will paint a big, bright, and fat red target on their back among their peers. Enko bristled at his frank admission. That was exactly what she didn't want to hear for her subordinate and secret love. Naruto remained silent as he listened, his expression not betraying anything yet. The reason I even entertained that notion with Itachi was because I was so confident in his abilities. You should understand that I'm feeling precisely the same now about Naruto-kun. I honestly do not think there's a serious possibility of failure. Even then, why do we have to announce this to all of our enemies? Even our allies like Suna wouldn't let this pass just because of our friendship. That's the way it has to be, Enko-chan. I cannot make the committee change its mind. Enko growled in frustration, then paced back and forth like a caged animal a few times before glaring at her infuriatingly calm leader. I don't like this one bit because I'm pretty sure you know that the real message from this will be, listen here, you assholes. We've got a future legitimate threat to your village's security over here, and here's his name along with the exact date and place where you can try every fucking thing possible to kill him. Send your best shot if you dare. What's even worse is that we can't do shit to prevent this because it's all going to be legal. Old man, she snarled with a worried Naruto putting a hand on her shoulder to try to calm her rising temper. I believe I have already told you the reason why I'm willing to allow Naruto-kun's enrollment only moments earlier. Don't make me repeat myself. The third firmly replied in a warning tone and flared his chakra pressure a little, making his two-nin stiffen slightly. Enko had to take a moment to remember she was speaking to her superior and bit back more of her objections. Okay, fine, if you're so sure Rookie will get through this alright. She forced herself to concede, and took comfort from Naruto's hand squeezing her shoulder in reassurance. I understand your concerns, Enko-chan, I really do, but I have been kept abreast of his training for the last 6 years. From what I've seen, the other villages will need to send exceptional genin or biju hosts to be able to threaten him. As long as Naruto-kun remains aware of his surroundings, he should succeed with little issue. Especially when I'm allowing him to use his partner's chakra anywhere with no limitations from this moment onward. The third declared firmly, and was secretly enjoying the sight of a shocked Naruto and Enko gaping at him with open mouths. Well, that'd improve the odds even more, but why now? The blonde was confused. It was out of concern for your and this village's safety that I forbade you from using Kurama-san's chakra unless in training or emergencies. Now, you have proven your ability to maintain control countless times and it makes no sense to needlessly limit any of my shinobi's full potential. However, I ask that you refrain from using that power so casually, and pick your moments carefully from now on. If it's not necessary, then there's no need to announce to your potential enemies that you're one of the biju's host. He paused for his nin to absorb all this before continuing. The rules I mentioned earlier are just the first part, Naruto-kun. You will encounter the rest when the exams begin. You will be given altered, and more difficult, conditions for passing every stage compared to your peers. I'm afraid none of us will be able to give you advance warning until just when each stage is administered, so you'll be on your own to deal with the exams however you can. Naruto's expression remained neutral as he stared at his surrogate grandfather silently for a long moment. His lips then cracked into a confident grin. Good, since this'll be too easy otherwise. I'll definitely take this on, and I know I won't disappoint you and Enko-sensei. The third nodded sagely, glad this conversation was going as expected. Enko smiled sadly, knowing a small part of her would always be worried for him non-stop when the exams arrived. Until the exams in the meantime, you will be given missions to meet that quota for enrollment. Mixed in with these normal missions will be some specialized ones that I believe only the two of you can do. Plus, I will have you join one or more of the other genin teams on their own missions to back them up once in a while, and these will count toward your quota as well. Last but not least, I'll be encouraging the other Junin sensei to invite you to train with their genin sometimes. This will be a busy year. Wouldn't have it any other way, old man. I'll also be keeping him on his toes all the time with my special brand of training. I'll make sure he won't waste the year. Enko replied for the two of them with a cocky grin. Special brand, my ass. It's just a free ticket to beat me up all the time like usual. Naruto muttered lowly. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't quiet enough. What was that, subordinate? The Junin's closed-eyes smile was sweet, but her tone was anything but. I'm just awed at what a great trailblazer of a leader you are, Enko-sensei. The subordinate lied with a straight face. Reet. Hiruzen smirked at this banter before clearing his throat to get their attention. If you don't have any more question about this, then I wish to offer my congratulations on this unique team assignment, and I honestly believe the two of you are going to go far together. I expect great things from this and good luck. The two nin straightened and pumped their right fists high in the air. We'll kick ass, they declared loudly at the same time, and then grinned at each other as they turned to exit the office, leaving behind a chuckling Hokage. We start tomorrow at ol number 42, 7 a.m. sharp. Until then, what are your plans, rookie? Enko quizzed a few minutes later as the duo made their way out of the tower. Not much. Gonna get in a couple hours of exercise, then see the gang later to find out how their day went. Naruto replied with a shrug. He really didn't have much planned today. Then can I drop by later tonight? I found one of these new videocassette machines recently on a raid, and ol Scarhead let me have it. I wanna hook it up to your TV since it's bigger than ours. We'll need a tape for the machine if we're gonna watch anything. I also happened to find a copy of your favorite actress's latest adventure inside it. That's just very convenient, if you ask me. Plus, I thought Yukie-chan's your favorite too. Enko gave an airy wave with a smirk. It's so I can blame you if the story's crappy. I can just say I got this for you out of my incredible kindness, and that it's not my fault you have no taste in those motion pictures. Your honesty is much appreciated, Enko-sensei. Naruto retorted dryly. By the way, Kurama calls them movies, short for moving picture, apparently. She rubbed her chin in thought for a moment. Movies, rolls right off the tongue, I like it. We'll have to do our best to spread the term around. The little Spitfire's knowledge is so useful. I'll show you, you damn snake. You'd better not come in here anytime soon or I'll go Samuel L. Jackson on your motherfucking ass. Please don't rile her up so much. I'm the one who's gonna pay for this when she's training me. Naruto groaned softly while tuning out Kurama's nonsensical rant in his head. Enko grinned impishly as she split off down a different street, waving a hand over her shoulder. Got some business in T&I. See ya later, rookie. The blonde let out a weary sigh and frowned. What the hell is this, Samuel L. Jackson? Anyway. It's Samuel L. Jackson, and you'd better get it right next time, fool. He's only just one of the biggest badass motherfuckers in the history of humanity. Oh, how I wish everybody around here spoke English so I'd have reasons to use his greatest line ever. Too bad the language is dead now. Naruto shook his head, suddenly exhausted for some reason. How is all that nonsense going to tell me exactly who he was? He grunted out loud as he walked off to find a place to exercise. Meanwhile, in a dessert shop, Gecko Hayate liked to think of himself as a resourceful man. In order to be that way, he had to be observant for anything he could make use of. Like finding out a certain woman's greatest guilty pleasure. At this moment, he was now making use of this rather valuable resource against his lovely girlfriend to get out of some trouble. And it was working well, or so he hoped. It wouldn't have mattered because this was one of his favorite things to do with her no matter what. How else would he be able to see the usually composed and mature Azuki Yugao become so unguarded and cute in public? I remember that I'm still annoyed with you, so don't think this changes anything. The aforementioned woman muttered lowly just before she slowly chomped down on a spoonful of her delicious dessert to savor the flavor with a blissful moan and a happy blush. The two of them were sitting in a booth at a popular dessert shop in the central district. On the table in front of Yugao was a medium-sized bowl of her favorite treat in the world, Rocky Road ice cream. Hayate was cradling a mug of coffee in his hands, clearly not a fan of sweets like other typical men. How would you like seconds? He asked graciously with a grin as he made to wave down a server. His girlfriend just stared at him in deadpan. Just piling on more isn't going to help you here. Are you quite sure about that? She was silent for a long moment before taking another slow spoonful followed by a cute moan. Fine, but only one more scoop, she muttered with averted eyes, a small pout, and pink cheeks as she shyly raised one little index finger. This was definitely one of the most adorable thing ever, and Hayate was quite ecstatic on the inside to have seen this. When he got their server's attention while Yugao was distracted by her ice cream's wonderful flavor, he quickly signaled with two gestures, a 2, then a 1. The experienced server, having spent years attending to the women and their men visiting this place, understood immediately. 2 scoops packed together into a larger one. Sorry, I'm being difficult. Yugao's whisper brought his attention back to her. Why? I did attack Naruto-san, even if it was a test on Hokage-sama's orders. Despite my best efforts to bribe you otherwise, you do have a right to be annoyed with me since he's a friend of yours. I know, but the fact is that I didn't even really care about that incident when Naruto-kun came out of it almost unscratched afterward anyway. So it's not what happened, but who? She nodded shyly as she took in another spoonful, while Hayate, in understanding. Didn't like that our first ever meeting was in the middle of a dark forest. She glared at him frostily. That sounds so bad. Blame Anko-chan for getting that joke into my head earlier. He retorted in deadpan and she rolled her eyes. They then settled into a comfortable silence for a moment while Yugao resumed eating. It was optional. Hayate finally admitted with a sigh, making his girlfriend's spoon stop halfway to her partially open mouth. Her chocolate brown eyes snapped to him sharply. Then why? You could have hurt each other badly. I wouldn't have wanted that. I wanted you two to meet like normal and like each other because you're both important to me. She had to stop her voice from rising in the dessert shop, then took a slow breath. She glanced down at her bowl sadly. What if the two of you ended up hating each other because of that choice? She mumbled, her voice barely above a whisper. Hayate reached his right hand out to gently grip her left hand resting on the table. She squeezed back. It didn't happen and we're already past that, no use thinking about what could have been. To be honest, it likely still wouldn't have happened even after so many different scenarios. After our little spar today, you'd have to realize it'd take something truly nasty for us to even be annoyed at each other. Yugao had to smile and concede that point. She then wondered just what kind of impossible things would get those two men to hate each other. Instead, they were already on their way to being friends after only 30 minutes, damn them and their easygoing natures. Hayate allowed a few coughs to clear his throat. I'm sorry I upset you about this. I know how important it is for you to have at least one more close friend. Yugao nodded slowly with a sad smile as she prodded at her ice cream with her spoon. Naruto-kun is only the third person since my childhood that I let get this close. I trust him just as much as you and Anko-chan, and it's really important to me that you two get along. You have no idea how relieved I am it all worked out. She scoffed self-deprecatingly. Even though I'm trying hard, I'm still having so much trouble allowing myself to trust more people, and I just kept almost all of them at arm's length no matter what. Some days I still wonder if the reason I took Anko-chan in mostly on a whim was just because I didn't have anyone else other than you at that time, and she'd have to be stuck being my sister, and get close that way. Plus, I actually tried to disembowel Naruto-kun the very first time we met outside of my duties. I still don't know how we ended up getting along after that. Hayate grinned. You helped Anko-chan because you're always kind and she needed you. No need to overthink this beyond that simple reason. As for Naruto-san, I'm sure he deserved that somehow. He certainly has the role of a troublemaker down pat. The woman laughed sweetly as he continued. You've come a long way since a kind yet awkward woman first showed up for my lessons. Whatever happened to her? Yugao smiled fondly. She met a weird man with a stupid sense of humor. Sounds about right. I'm sure he's a lucky bastard now. She shrugged playfully. He might be. At this point, the server stopped by the table with another bowl of Rocky Road for the purple-haired Anbu, who squealed slightly with a clap of her hands as it was set down in front of her. She didn't even bother noticing that the single scoop was a bit larger than normal as she quickly dug in. Hayate was watching all of this with a mischievous grin hidden behind hands steepled on the table. The job would have gone on to someone else anyway if I passed it up. I also wanted to see what he's like after all the things you've said about him. He finally spoke after a long moment of watching. Yugao raised an eyebrow. By fighting each other. I remember telling you this when I was your sensei. Good swordsmen could easily learn a lot about each other just from crossing blades. I suppose I'm not really feeling much of that whenever I fought, at least other than to predict their actions from their mannerisms and then devise tactics. Is there actually more to this? Hayate shrugged vaguely. It's kind of a guy thing. Yugao had to scoff at that and shake her head with a grin. She paused to happily take another spoonful. So what did you learn just from crossing blades? She then asked with a teasing tone. Hayate paused for a long moment, and she leaned in a little despite her disbelief about this guy thing. He's an okay guy, he finally said dully with a lazy shrug. Yugao's expression abruptly turned deadpan with a tick mark forming on her forehead. She actually wanted to dump the bowl of ice cream on his head right there. Only the fact it was her delicious rocky road saved him from such action. Instead, she settled for kicking one of his shins under the table, making him wince. That was such a crappy thing to do. I didn't say you'd get life details. I just can tell he's a good and honorable man, and I can trust him, especially with your life. If the two of you ever end up in danger together somewhere down the road, I just know he'll do what it takes to keep you unhurt. She quirked an eyebrow. That doesn't sound like traits an okay guy would have. She pointed out, sounding a little insulted that her best male friend didn't get a better compliment from her boyfriend. Hayate leaned back into his seat with a grin. It's just that I think I should be the only great guy around. This earned him some exaggerated eye rolls followed by a beautiful and saucy smile as she nibbled on her spoon playfully. Kami, he truly loved taking his girlfriend here. Later with Naruto, a panting and shirtless blonde slowly crawled onto the ground over the edge of the deep ravine he was climbing up and down repeatedly for the past hour. He then rolled onto his back with a groan before forcing himself to slowly stand on his feet. 3. He whispered as he brought his hands together in a hand seal. 4 thick lines became visible along with a pentagon-shaped seal array on his back where they originated. 2 of those lines weaved their way all over his bare arms and the other 2 disappeared out of view down into his pants, presumably to weave around his legs as well. With a quick molding of chakra, the thick line on his right arm began to fade out, leaving it all bare, denoting that his resistance seal was now shifting down from level 4 to 3. The intricate inkwork then faded away, leaving his torso mostly unblemished. Not too bad. Won't be long before I get to use level 4 every day, he thought as he easily flexed his arms now that they weren't feeling so weighted down. He then began stretching to cool down. Not a bad first day. Seems like I missed the excitement early this afternoon, though. Kurama piped up. Sorry, but I know how much you don't like your naps interrupted if it's not an emergency. There's always my memory you can look through anyway. I suppose so, I might have smacked you one if I had to wake up to watch the container of the strongest biju in existence lose rather easily. Naruto grinned amusedly. Maybe I should have gone full power on him. For that, I'd definitely knock you around like a pinball. That's like an adult lion going after a baby bunny, and this is reserved for emergencies and super high-class enemies. Oh well, I'm sure you'll eventually get around to beating that half-dead guy. That's quite a vote of confidence, coming from you. Oh shut up. Naruto. A voice called out from behind. He turned around to see his friends walking onto the training ground. Shikamaru was leading the pack waving lazily. Oi. How'd it go for all of you? Naruto called back with a wave as he strode over to a nearby log where the clothes for his currently bare torso were laid out. He was amused to note Hinata and Ino checking him out appreciatively as the group moved closer. We've all passed, so it's troublesome for me. Shikamaru muttered lazily, while Ino sighed and gave him a half-hearted swat for that. Naruto let out a guffaw. Well, so have I, looks like we're all in. He replied as he gave a brief side hug and a peck on the cheek each to Hinata and Ino when they moved to his sides. Asuma-sensei seems like a pretty cool guy, if not for the fact he's like a walking smokestack. The blonde mind walker quipped. He treated us to lunch at the barbecue place, though. He's definitely a good guy in my book. Choji spoke up excitedly in between mouthfuls from his bag of chips. Shikamaru sighed wearily. Troublesome, you'd think the yellow flash is a good guy only if he buys you food. All of his other deeds wouldn't have mattered to you. He teased with a grin. Choji just shrugged nonchalantly, not even defending himself. Naruto turned to Team 8 just as he finished putting on his top, almost laughing at the small coos of disappointment from his girlfriends. How's your new sensei? Kurenai-sensei's a total babe. Kiba exclaimed excitedly, getting weary headshakes from Hinata and Shino. Something tells me you'll end up annoying her into using a nasty genjutsu on you before long. If she gets angry and ever mutters anything that sounds like, "Guy, run like hell, okay." Naruto warned with a grin, making Kiba chuckle sheepishly. Indeed, Kiba-san. You should focus on her attributes that truly matter, like her high intelligence, agreeable communication skills, high tolerance for those different from her. Shino trailed off here when he noticed Kiba and Naruto were grinning knowingly at him. Looks like you're not alone in your crush. The blonde nudged his dog-using friend. Akamaru yipped in agreement from his perch atop his human's head. Yeah, oi. Kiba exclaimed with a growing blush when he finally caught on to what Naruto was implying. It took Shino a moment to get what they getting at, and a very faint pink was now coloring his cheeks. Grinning, Naruto turned to Hinata, who was giggling along with Ino at the banter. How's she to you? She would be an excellent sensei and we'll learn a great deal from her. But, I just hope she's not going to be too coddling as she seemed to let on today. Naruto nodded, already knowing that part of Kurenai's personality from Anko. She was actually a very motherly person despite her public image as a strongly independent woman. He had a feeling she'd retire from the military permanently as soon as if she got pregnant, and become a full-time housewife without looking back. If it gets to be a problem, just have a talk and I'm sure it'll work itself out. He assured as he pecked on her forehead, making her smile happily. How'd it go with you and Anko-chan? Ino quizzed, curious about how they were handling having to put some of their deeper feelings on hold. Naruto put on a fond smile as he remembered the day. Pretty crazy. I expected nothing less from being around her, of course. How about I tell you over dinner? He suggested and everyone quickly agreed. They then began making their way into Konoha. On the way, Ino realized something. Oh. I wonder if Sakura-chan passed with her team. Naruto had to burst out laughing hard, much to everyone's confusion. It took him a long minute to finally get his laughter down to chortles. Knowing Kakashi-sensei, her test still hasn't happened and probably won't until next morning at least. By this time tomorrow, his team seriously is going to hate him. He. Late that night at Naruto's apartment it was a low mechanical whirring sound that woke him up. Wappa. Naruto grunted quietly as he blinked heavy sleep out of his eyes. Quickly glancing around the living room for the source of that odd noise, he found it to be coming from a small black box on top of his somewhat large TV set. The now silent screen was showing white noise. Oh, we were watching a movie. He muttered quietly, deducing he had fallen asleep in the middle of the story and let the tape run out. The machine then apparently began rewinding it automatically, making the whirring noise he was hearing. The videocassette machine, or VCR, as termed by Kurama, just clicked to a full stop, indicating the tape was now fully rewinded. Naruto sighed and shook his head upon trying to remember any part of the movie. He still liked the main actress, but the story and writing were definitely mediocre at best. Smacking his dry lips, he wondered where Anko went since he remembered her sitting next to him when he fell asleep. He got his answer as soon he noticed a weight resting against his side. And it just shifted. He almost exclaimed in shock when a feminine arm suddenly wrapped around his chest and a sinfully soft female body pulled itself firmly against his right side with a somewhat erotic moan of contentment. If that wasn't enough to get him excited almost instantly, a pair of soft lips and a nose nuzzling deeply into his neck with warm breaths blowing all over it almost sent him over just from the sensations alone. Oh Kami, please don't let this get embarrassing. Unfortunately, no one seemed to answer his prayer as this woman continued to snuggle even closer, nuzzled even deeper, and made more innocent moans that still ended up sounding deeply erotic. It was mainly luck that Naruto managed to gently wriggle away from her face and get enough breathing room to finally reduce the chance of losing it. He had a good guess on her identity, if the flashes of purple, and a familiar scent of dango and snakes on her were any indication. Getting a good look, the mystery woman snuggling into his right side obviously turned out to be Anko dressed in a simple tight t-shirt and flannel pants. She also had her hair down, which he absolutely cherished. Taking a closer look, his heart almost melted at just how utterly content her expression seemed as she slept soundly next to him, somewhat trying to find more of him to cuddle up to. With all of Yugao's talk about her past dealings with the curse mark, he wondered if she was actually getting enough restful sleep now even years later after its removal. Did he at least help with her sleep this night? He liked to think so. Almost automatically, Naruto's left hand slowly moved up to lightly touch her right cheek before he even realized it. She let out a pleased mewl as she nuzzled into his touch, still asleep. He knew he should be stopping this, but he couldn't help but get drawn in, wanting to see and hear more of this beautiful woman's reactions to his ministrations. It was only when he noticed himself hovering just a few centimeters from Anko's soft and partially open lips that he almost jerked back in shock. Fortunately, he kept enough presence of mind to instead draw back slowly so as not to risk jolting her. Shaking his head violently, Naruto didn't want to believe he almost did that. He knew if it was going to happen, he wanted his first kiss with Anko to be when she was awake and coherent. He was fairly sure she wanted the same thing, so he shouldn't be doing this now. Why did she have to look so enticing? Letting out a tired sigh, the blonde knew this was going to be torture for as long as they tried to keep this platonic, if this was already pushing his resolve to its limit on the very first night of their team assignment together. After a few minutes, he finally managed to break free completely from Anko's grip to stand up. Deciding he would give her his bedroom for the night, he sent a clone ahead to prepare the bed, then bent down to pick her up into a bridal carry. Almost instinctively, she curled up tighter and shifted so she could slide her arms up around his neck and nuzzle her face against it once again. Naruto allowed a quiet but tortured groan as his knees nearly buckled under the strong sensations that came roaring back. Growling quietly, he gritted his teeth and persevered as he slowly made his way out of the living room into his bedroom. Finding the bed already prepared, he then slid Anko in, struggled gently with her rather strong grip around his neck, and finally got free to tuck her in. He gave her cute sleeping face a long look before finally allowing himself just one thing when he bent down to give this beautiful woman's forehead a very light peck. "You're driving me crazy, and I'm definitely falling for you, Anko-chan," he whispered upon drawing back. He wondered if he saw her cheeks flash pink for an instant just now. Putting that out of his mind, he then promptly left the room, afraid he would have done more if he stayed any longer. As soon as the door closed, Anko's light brown eyes popped wide open instantly with her cheeks now flaming red. After a long moment to catch her hitching breath for hearing such a statement from Naruto, she lifted her head to glare at the door in frustration that her love didn't do more to her. Letting out an unfulfilled sigh, Anko quietly turned over to bury her face into the bed, wondering if she should have just given herself into the impulse to grab his face and kiss him silly when she sensed him inching in toward her lips. She could almost read his mind at that time and knew that he was thinking it wasn't appropriate with her, asleep. Why did he have to be so damn noble? And why didn't she jump him anyway? She then allowed herself to blush even more as she repeated Naruto's last words over and over in her mind. Absent-mindedly rubbing her fingertips against the still tingling spot on her forehead where his lips brushed against it, she smiled softly. Just how was he able to make her feel this way so easily? She needed more, that it felt like her entire body was aching just from the sheer desire. How the hell am I going to keep this up? Will we even make it 1 month? She thought to herself in frustration. However, it didn't take long before Naruto's calming scent from the sheets easily lulled her into a deep sleep within minutes, leaving tonight's topics for another time. Soon in the mindscape, an annoyed, backed up, and grumbling Naruto appeared in the middle of a beach bordering an enormous sea. That was enough to get a confused frown out of him. From what he knew, Kurama never mentioned doing any training around water bodies this day. There's been a change. A female voice purred behind him, who shrugged and turned around. So what are we? The next word caught in his throat with his eyes taking in one of the most beautiful sights in recent memory. Standing before him in a relaxed feet-wide stance with her left hand resting comfortably on her hip was the gorgeous and petite Kurama, looking different than usual. The sea breeze was blowing her beautiful mid-back length black hair around gently, and she was wearing a skimpy set of glittering golden yellow string bikinis that provided a wonderful contrast to her dark skin, yet matched her golden eyes. The bikinis covered up everything just the right amount to be tasteful yet very enticing, and the rest of her beautiful body was all on display for her container to take into his heart's content. Her milk chocolate skin looked smooth and delectable enough to suck on just about anywhere. Her legs were just the right length and perfectly toned, almost demanding to be kissed all over and worshipped. Her slightly curvy hips fit her athletic 5'0" frame flawlessly, and Naruto knew the popular, hourglass figure wouldn't have looked right on this beautiful vixen. Her flat and toned stomach was a delightful treat to stare at from any angle. Her impeccably proportioned B-cup breasts were slightly pushed up to show an amazing view of the valley between two curvy mounds. Her collarbones and long neck seemed to be asking for lots of nibbling. A cute little upper fang poking out of her soft and smirking lips screamed playfulness. Her mischievous slatted eyes, with their brilliant gem-like gold irises, easily drew anyone in if they stared long enough. Her luscious curly black hair running down her smooth back in waves was begging to have fingers raking through it. After an eternity of staring, a very flattered-looking Kurama finally spoke, her voice sounding like a melody. I noticed your little naughty thoughts about those two women in bikinis earlier and I'm in a good mood. I decided to give this a try and you're the first to see me like this. Do you like it? She finished with a sweet smile, knowing the answer already. Definitely. But I'm the first, he stammered, and couldn't help the enormous swell of male pride at that admission as his bulging eyes continued to burn her perfect form into memory. I don't remember ever revealing this much skin for any other human, so I guess congratulations are in order. She replied casually. Inwardly, she was enjoying sensing that he found her so desirable, and feeling like the luckiest bastard for all time just for being the first one to see this much of her. She knew he thought she was beautiful all the time, but there was a difference between appreciating beauty and being attracted to it. She couldn't believe that she, Kurama the great Kyuubi no Yuko, was actually nervous about him seeing her like this when she first thought of this. However, she also told herself that she honestly couldn't think of someone better than Uzumaki Naruto in her entire lifetime to show off so much for, and she now understood why human women enjoyed this. Naruto was staring at her unblinkingly as if she was his one and only goddess in the world. Relishing this feeling immensely, she licked her lips slightly and smirked deviously. Oh, there's still one more thing you haven't seen yet. Before he could even ready himself, Naruto was treated to the spectacular sight of Kurama playfully twirling 180° on one foot with her hair whipping around so she could show her perfectly formed ass to her container. The skimpy bikini bottom could barely cover it all in the back, allowing a very tantalizing peek at the top few centimeters of these pert and smooth cheeks. They even jiggled just the right amount with her movements too. He easily imagined just how wonderful it would feel to fondle them softly and listen to her moans of contentment. It was definitely her sexiest feature by far. How do you like this view? Kurama purred in a silky smooth tone just as she gazed over her shoulder at him with a smoldering pair of half-lidded eyes and a sexy fanged smirk. That expression needed to be illegal just for the happy heart attacks it would easily cause. Or is this better? She then delivered her most powerful strike yet when she slowly turned back to him and struck a slightly sensual pose. Her front leg was slightly bent forward at the knee and her chest stuck out a little, empathizing it quite well and also improving her athletic curves overall. Far from done, she then began trailing her fingertips erotically from her collarbones downward into the valley of her breasts, brushing against the soft curves on the way through. These dainty little fingers continued onto her flat stomach, lightly tracing along its soft lines around her navel down to her bikini bottom. Her fingertips just barely touched the waistline before they changed courses and followed it outward to her hips in order to tantalizingly tug at the side strings a little, careful not to loosen the knots too much just yet. All the while she was doing this, she kept that sexy expression on her face, daring her stunned container to keep watching. She slowly bit her bottom lip seductively with an audible purr. This was the moment one overwhelmed Uzumaki Naruto finally hit his limit. A massive nosebleed rocketed him high into the air until his unconscious form finally crashed limply into the beach's soft sand some distance away. Kurama spent a few seconds blinking at this reaction, before a wide and victorious grin split her face and she burst into melodious laughter. She was so pleased to have gotten that reaction, plus her prank went off perfectly. She knew her container was so tightly wound up from that bit with Anko that any more provocation would have sent him off the deep end. She got the funny reaction she wanted, and she was surprised at just how good it made her feel for Naruto to see her in that way. She would have to ponder over that unusual, but rather addictive, emotion for a while. Putting that aside, she cutely skipped over to the unconscious form of her container and gripped him by one of his ankles. She then began effortlessly and carelessly dragging the larger and heavier deadweight across the beach into the horizon, while humming with a huge grin stuck on her face. The sea breeze was feeling great as it gently blew her curly hair around. I'll let you sleep this off a bit, at least before I throw you into the sea off that cliff over there. She chirped happily. There was training to get to after all. Naruto's groaning and limp form was leaving behind a trench in the sand in their wake. Omake. Boop. Do you speak it? Long ago in Konohagakure era, a beautiful violet-eyed woman blinked as she found herself standing in an empty Hokage's office. She was dressed in an elegant kimono, and her most distinctive feature was her beautiful scarlet hair tied up in twin buns with a sealing paper hanging from each of them. Wherever did my husband go to, I wonder? Uzumaki Mito remarked with an index finger on her chin. Several kilometers outside Konohagakure, two men were zipping through a large plane at an incredible speed. Get back here, you asshole. The white-haired man in blue samurai-style armor roared. He was waving a lighting-charged sword around like a madman while he was gaining slowly on the other man, who was wearing red armor and had long black hair. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. How the hell was I supposed to know that Rinko lady was some crazy secret femdom? He yelled frantically back over his shoulder just as he dodged a lightning bolt, screaming like a little girl while putting everything into his legs to run faster. When I get my hands on you, my dear brother, I'd like for you to help me with testing a Horizon marker I accidentally dropped into an active volcano the other day. The first man growled insanely as he prepared to shoot out a quick succession of lightning bolts from his sword right at his older brother's ass. Somebody save me. Back at the office, Mito suddenly smiled beatifically after being deep in thought for a moment. I do not sense him being impure with anyone who's not me, so he must be perfectly fine. She chirped cheerfully as she made her way over to the desk, which had a crystal ball sitting on it. He's left this out here. That could have been dangerous in the wrong hands if someone unsavory had found this. She remarked as she sat in the chair and began to fiddle with the ball. She was planning on modifying it eventually, so this worked out for her. Such scandalous things the young women were doing, wearing little more than bandage wrappings to these pawns. It's a good thing I came across one of them recently, and I'm now able to spare them such embarrassment if this silly fad keeps up. It would not do for any righteous and upstanding Hokage to be tempted by such a provocative activity. She mumbled to herself as she began to fiddle with some seals on the crystal ball's main array. After a moment, she paused in her work. What if this fad did die out? What if someone truly needed to check these pawns for legitimate reasons? I should put in a passphrase then. What should I use? I'd better put in a hint just in case I forget. That phrase my cute tenant was ranting about all the time would be perfect, she continued to mumble as she went back to working on the crystal ball, never realizing that her manly husband, who definitely did not scream like a little girl, wasn't coming back for days. Present day in Hokage's office. Alright, let's see what we have here. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, commented as he brought the crystal ball out. Still can't believe I didn't think of swimming holes. He muttered lowly as he began his chakra flow into the ball. Its misty insides began to swirl around, until a loud and obnoxious, boop sound nearly gave the old man a heart attack. What? Hiruzen mumbled with wide eyes as he gathered his wits, and noted some text floating inside the projection. Please input passphrase. What the hell? Another obnoxious, boop startled him once again, and the words inside the ball shifted to flash a different set of text. Incorrect passphrase. And it changed back to the original text a few seconds later. This has to be Lady Mito's handiwork. Hiruzen grumbled, knowing he wasn't going to get any peeping done anytime soon. Boop. Another near heart attack. Arg. Stop that. Boop. Damn it. Take a hint and shut up. This time, the incorrect message shifted to a new one. Hint for passphrase. Greatest line uttered by the biggest badass motherfucker in history, Samuel L. Jackson. Utterly bewildered, the third had only one response. What the hell is a Samuel L. Jackson? Boop. For anyone wondering why Tobirama was trying to kill poor Hashirama, please refer to the chapter 19 Omake. As for the boop sound, just think of the most obnoxious sound you've ever heard a computer make whenever you input an incorrect password, and that's the sound you're hearing. I was in a particularly silly mood writing parts of this chapter and the Samuel L. Jackson bit ran away from me. Hope you didn't mind. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of an insight into Yugao and Hayate's relationship, and learned a bit about Yugao's past written my own way. She definitely looks like the serious type that'd be awkward around people, but is also truly kindhearted, which was why she took a chance on adopting Anko. Hope my explanation for Naruto getting into the examination by himself is good enough. Trust me, it won't be easy sailing through the exams for him as the third seemed to hope for. Would the Hokage having to send those letters out change the composition of the exams significantly? You'll have to find out when it happens. I also took the liberty of putting the exams off for about a year so I could let the characters age a bit more. My plans for the romantic parts of this story are getting more mature quicker than I thought, and I'd rather Naruto and the others are at least closer to 15 or older instead of 13 or younger. Don't worry. The year will go by quickly, won't even be more than 2 chapters before we see signs of the wave arc coming. I just wanted to write a bit of Anko and Naruto's times together before the next major arc. Also, be ready for a little surprise in the next chapter. I just wish I could have gotten a nice big fat chapter to all of you as apology for such a long wait, but I've decided as soon as I made this much that you don't need to be waiting another couple weeks or longer, so please be patient, for this is just the calm before the storm for the next 5 chapters or so. Have a good one till then. Yane. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.